Yeah. That was a nice front flip. Right at the top. I failed. Thanks. What did you hit? I don't even know.
The Hoosier EB1 treaded Monoride one-wheel electric board tire. To be frank, I'm not entirely sure what this tire is called. Hoosier recently released a new line of one-wheel focused tires, and that looks to be named Monoride, but the tires themselves have a badge that says EB1, which I assume to mean Electric Board 1. So that's fine. For some context and product disclosure, I was originally sent some of these tires some months ago to make promotional content. Hoosier and I could not come to an agreement on the terms, and so that arrangement did not come to fruition. Very shortly after that, I came to the decision to just entirely remove free product from my content schedule to simplify things anyway. The tires that were sent to me were just given away to locals, and that was the end of that. I did still want to review these tires, and so I just bought new ones on my own, and those are what I'll be taking a look at in this video and the upcoming review of the slick tire. That all being said, let's get into the review of the Hoosier Monoride EB1 treaded tire. Specifically, this is the one that is sized like a traditional one-wheel XR tire in that it is 11 by 6 by 6, and so it will fit 6-inch rim widths like those found on the one-wheel XR plus V1, and as well as the Superflux, Cannon Core, and the newer 6-inch GTS motor. It will not fit the 6.5-inch GT and GTS motors. This is only for the 6-inch rim width. This is this tire's weight. One treaded is 51.5 ounces. And here are some measurements of the Shore durometer of the tread rubber.
Oh wow, we're rounding up again, folks. 36, 37, 40, and let's get this stabilized for a second. 38.
This rubber compound feels and measures about the same as D10A, and so while I have been told by Hoosier that this is a slightly different compound, it feels and measures and rides like D10A, so I don't really know. By the way, I will be rolling in some footage shot when my riding friends and I unboxed the original shipment of these, and so while those clips are of that evening's impressions of the tires, the meat of this review is based on my own riding experiences with the specific tire being reviewed, just for the sake of clarity. When it comes to purchasing these tires, it's incidentally fairly easy. This treaded tire was ordered on Amazon, where it seems that all the new tires are currently available. Pricing is a bit lower than I would normally see for one-wheel focused tires, and these models seem to be offered by a vendor called Mass Depot. Oddly enough, my browser's price compare tool found these tires sold through Walmart, also by Mass Depot, so that's an option as well. Through those channels, you will probably end up paying about $120 total for this treaded model. The slick is also available at the same places, but I ordered that one from Hoosier Tire West, which also sells these models. All of the EB1 tires seem to be a bit cheaper than other one-wheel tire models, but not by a massive amount. $10 to $20 less in some cases, in other cases just a few dollars. It really depends on the vendor and if there are any promotions or coupons available at the time. As per every other tire being reviewed on this channel going forward, this install is done dry without the use of bead lubricants or the addition of any tire sealant. Hoosiers in general are pretty easy to install, and a part of that is because they have a pretty trim and pliable carcass. Compared to a lot of one-wheel tires, Hoosiers are always kind of like a rubber bag with surprisingly little structure when they're not mounted. It makes removal really easy also, since they don't really fight back when peeling them off the hub. But installation is frankly the same as most tires I've encountered so far. Alright, so treaded for speed. 35, 50. Regarding the build and in-hand feel of this tire, I'll have to divide it into two parts. The first part is for riders who have been riding one-wheels for a while. If you've been into riding one-wheels since the Plus and XR days, then you'll understand what I'm about to say. And so if you've ever come across the question of one-wheel versus boosted board, then this explanation is for you. The EB1 is, in its soul, basically a 6-inch treaded Hoosier in D10A. or kind of a T2. That's basically it. If none of what I just said means anything to you, then I'm hoping this next bit will be helpful. This tire sits in what I consider the very middle ground between stability and ease of turning. This tire profile is one of the foundational shapes in one-wheel tires that often would be referred to as stable but carvy. That's kind of an oxymoronic statement when you think about it, but this tire does not feel unstable. But it doesn't fight you when you try to turn. It's kind of just too soft to do that. Naturally, I ride a lot of pavement, and so the shape of this tire is something that can be easily felt while riding on the street. I had this one inflated to about 12 psi, which lets it flatten out a bit on the pavement. Above 15 psi, it starts to round out a lot, and the nimbleness starts to come through even more. That can be a good thing if it's what you're looking for, but above 20 miles per hour, the vibration and roundness start to make me feel a bit uncertain and a bit uncomfortable, and so I did not care for this tire at that pressure. 12 psi felt the best for me. That being said, this tire has a very present and kind of obnoxious vibration on pavement. Which is not surprising. Hoosier's tread pattern sits slightly more towards the knobby side of the tire tread spectrum, and so it's kind of like being near an open frame Jeep on the highway. You can just hear the tire on the road. If you primarily ride on pavement, I would not get this tire. It's common to see folks say they ride 90% street, 10% trail. For those folks, just don't bother. Get a slick or something, which will probably do decently enough on a lot of trails anyway. This is probably not for you. This is purely an off-road tire. The tread pattern alone says plenty. While it makes street riding a bit loud and have road vibrations, it makes for a really sure grip on most off-road terrain. Even looser stuff like the dust and sand on paths that haven't seen much rain recently. Hoosier tread tends to slip a little less, I'd imagine because there's more open area and more pronounced knob-like shapes to really deform around the ground textures and roots or rocks. At least I experienced a little less slippage when riding this Hoosier treaded than I have with most other tires I've tried so far. If grip is your top priority and you don't care about riding pavement and you don't want something really knobby, then this may be a tire for you. So to start to sum things up, this is a good tire. I can really appreciate it because it has a very classic feel to it. Taking it around on pavement and through local parks kind of reminded me of a pre-pandemic world where there were only about 4 tires to choose from if you wanted to get away from the dreaded stock Vega that came on the Onewheel XR. Some local riders would have 6-inch slicks, maybe one person had a Burris, and this tread pattern was just tops for veering off the road and finding some dirt. If you take a look at my board, you may be able to tell that I kind of have a nostalgic side for this kind of thing. I still prefer wooden foot pads. The XR size and shape of board is still way better than the GT stuff, and so there's always going to be a soft spot for a one-wheel with a Hoosier on it. And so even if this tire isn't really anything new, even though it doesn't have a bunch of new features, it's got enough old school soul to it to make it a viable choice if you're into that sort of thing. As always, I appreciate your viewership. I hope this was helpful. Thank you for watching, and take care.